Today, we're going to talk about how to write a good middle. Have you ever heard that phrase, saggy middle? Typically, it refers to a story that has a really interesting beginning, a fairly satisfying conclusion, and then the middle is just there. Sort of spongy and hard to get through. If you're new to this channel, welcome. My name is Seth. I'm a full-time fantasy author. I've written 30 books, and I make these videos because I like to. We're still in the middle of a series where we're talking about how to write various things. The inspiration for these videos is a writer's retreat that I went on, and I'm borrowing wholesale from one of the speakers because I think it's important if I want to internalize these ideas that I teach them. And so I'll link the speaker in the description below. She's a great writer, and you should definitely check out her stuff. Saggy middles are a problem, a real problem. Almost universally, the middle of a story is its weakest point. Often, as writers, we have really cool ideas to start stories. And sometimes we have really cool ideas for how to end stories. But there are very, very few writers who just have fantastic ideas for what's happening in the middle of their story. First and foremost, the number one thing we can do to tighten a saggy middle is to write what we want to write. And not just what we want to write, but what excites us. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, Seth, isn't that what you're supposed to do all of the time? Well, yes, but when we have a preset beginning and a fair idea of what's coming at the end, or maybe we've already written the end, then what's really important is that the middle part of the book keeps us excited. If we feel like it's a slog to write, our reader will inevitably feel like it's a slog to read. And so, if we aren't excited about it, we need to change it. If we're just like, man, I wish this chapter was over, let's get on to the next thing, then probably our reader is going to feel exactly the same way. Those are the chapters in books that people just skip. And sometimes it's not just one scene. Sometimes it's chapter after chapter after chapter. We don't want to write like that. We want to write books that grab people from beginning to end, dragging them along whether they like it or not. And the only way to write a book like that is to write what excites you. So if you're writing and you find yourself just sort of dreading continuing on, then it's a clear message that you need a change. You need to make something different happen. And that might mean rewriting plot points. That might mean shifting the flow of the story. That might mean introducing new characters, pulling characters out, killing somebody off, blowing something up. I don't know. It's up to you. You're the author, after all. I remember Stephen King telling a story about how he wrote this really fun beginning for a book, and he had a great end in mind. But he got to the middle and he realized there were just too many characters, and it was starting to drag on as he's trying to deal with all of them. He arranged for all of them to meet up at the same building, and then he blew it up, immediately eliminating 90% of his cast. That is a very simple way to just change the situation. I was reading a book recently where something like that happened. One of the characters, high off their success, as they've just completed this big, important mission, returns to find that their entire nation has been plunged into war. The thing they thought was success now actually doesn't matter because everything has moved a different direction. That right there is an author who looked at the middle of their book and said, ooh, this just isn't fun. And so they introduced some chaos to make it more fun. We can do exactly that by asking a simple question. What needs to happen? What is the thing that has to happen to get me from point A to point B? And then, whatever that is, we find the most unexpected way to go from point A to point B. You might think of it as a story about someone who walks out their front door needing to go to work. You could just have them get in their car and drive to work. That would be a saggy middle. That's not very interesting. Just think about how many obstacles you can put in their way, though. Just think about what a circuitous route they might have to take in order to go from home to work. A million things could happen during that time. In fact, almost anything could happen during that time. So make it happen. Don't get so stuck in your head that the character has to go from here to there that you forget that you are in charge of what they experience and see along the way. And you can make it fun. A little bit of chaos never hurt anybody in a book except for the protagonist, and maybe some of the side characters too. But as a reader, it's delightful. So don't be afraid of throwing a bit of chaos into your story. Don't be afraid of taking a left turn when they should have taken a right turn. Don't be afraid of blowing everything up. Because again, if it's not fun for you, it's not going to be fun for everybody else. So just make sure that you're having fun with it. And that's really it. That's how you fix a saggy middle. That's how you tighten up a story that is just seeming to drag along. Don't take the normal route. Take a completely different route. Inject chaos into your story, and most of all, make sure that you are having fun.